The scale of some of these archives is truly staggering. For example, the Royal Archives of Ebla contained tens of thousands of tablets, and similar vast collections have been found in other major Mesopotamian cities. These archives were the memory of the state, the temple, and the powerful families. If a dispute arose over land ownership, a scribe would consult the archive for the original deed. The soft rustle of washi paper, the faint scent of bamboo, and the gentle flicker of candlelight create a cocoon of calm amid the city's bustle. You probably won't survive this story if you're expecting sword fights or samurai drama. This is the slow, quiet glow of everyday craft. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, while you're at it, drop your location and local time in the comments. Let's see how far this lantern light travels tonight. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step into Edo, Japan's sprawling capital during the Tokugawa shogunate, a city of over 1 million souls. Streets buzz with merchants, samurai, and townsfolk, but your focus is drawn to a quieter cornera workshop where paper lantern makers ply their trade. These artisans, often overlooked in grand histories, shape the soft glow that lights Edo's nights. Paper lanterns aren't just practical, they're cultural icons, symbols of celebration, guidance, and even spiritual protection. The craft of lantern making is surprisingly old, dating back centuries before Edo's rise, but it truly flourished here. You notice how the lantern's gentle light contrasts with the city's noisy energy, offering a kind of nocturnal comfort. Historians still argue whether these makers were considered lowly labourers or respected craftsmen. But one thing's clear, their work illuminated the lives of Edo's people in more ways than one. As you watch, the lantern maker's hands move with practiced ease, folding thin sheets of washi paper over slender bamboo frames. The process seems almost meditative, a quiet ritual repeated day after day. The smell of rice paste and the faint crackle of drying paper fill the air. It's a world where patience and precision matter more than speed or spectacle. You might find it odd that such a simple object-to-paper lantern could hold so much significance, but in Edo, these lanterns guide travellers, mark festivals, and even signal businesses. Their glow is a thread weaving through the city's fabric, connecting people in the dark. And here's a quirky tidbit. Some lantern makers believed that whispering wishes into the lantern before lighting it could send messages to the gods. Whether this was widespread or just a charming superstition remains a mystery, but it adds a layer of magic to their craft. So, as you settle into this gentle world, remember, you're not just watching a craft. You're stepping into a quiet revolution of light, patience, and tradition that flickered softly through Edo's nights. You find yourself drifting back in time, tracing the origins of paper lanterns in Japan, a story that flickers somewhere between fact and folklore. Paper lanterns, or chochin, didn't just appear overnight in Edo. Their roots stretch back centuries, entwined with cultural exchanges and evolving needs. The earliest paper lanterns are believed to have come from China, where lantern festivals had long been celebrated. Japan adopted and adapted this glowing tradition, making it uniquely its own. Historians still argue whether the first Japanese paper lanterns were primarily practical tools for lighting or symbolic objects used in religious ceremonies. Some evidence suggests that by the Heian period, 794–1185, paper lanterns were already common in temple rituals, casting a soft, sacred light during nighttime prayers. You might imagine monks carefully carrying these fragile lanterns, their flickering flames warding off evil spirits in the quiet temple grounds. A quirky tidbit. One legend claims that a wandering monk invented the paper lantern after being caught in a sudden storm. He supposedly wrapped paper around a wooden frame to protect his candle from the rain, creating a portable, weatherproof light source. Whether this story is true or just a charming myth, it captures the ingenuity behind the lantern's design. By the Edo period, paper lanterns had evolved considerably, becoming more than just religious artifacts. They were everywhere, lighting streets, homes, and shops. The lantern's glow was a comforting presence in a city that never truly slept, guiding people through winding alleys and signaling open businesses. You might be surprised to learn that early paper lanterns were not always made from the delicate washi paper we associate with Japanese crafts today. Some were constructed with oiled paper or even thin silk, materials that offer different textures and durability. This diversity reflects the lantern's journey from sacred object to everyday necessity. Historians still debate how much influence Chinese lantern-making techniques had on Japanese artisans. Some argue that Japan developed its own distinct style quite early, while others see a continuous thread of cultural borrowing. Either way, the paper lantern's story is a glowing example of cross-cultural creativity. So as you imagine these early lanterns flickering through Japan's past, you're witnessing the birth of a tradition that would light up Edo's nights for centuries to come. And remember, every flicker you see tonight traces back to this fascinating blend of practicality, spirituality, and a touch of legend. You find yourself peering closely at the delicate materials that form the heart of an Edo-era paper lantern, marveling at the craftsmanship that turns simple components into glowing art. The lantern's frame is a lightweight skeleton of bamboo, carefully split and bent into graceful circles. Bamboo, abundant and flexible, is the perfect choice, strong enough to hold shape, but light enough to carry. You can almost hear the soft snap as artisans split each stalk with precision, a sound as familiar to them as your own breathing. Historians still argue whether the bamboo used was sourced locally or traded from more distant regions, but what's clear is that the quality of bamboo directly affected the lantern's durability. Some makers preferred a particular variety known for its resilience, while others favoured lighter, more pliable stalks for intricate designs. The paper itself is the real star here. Washi, a traditional Japanese paper made from the fibres of the mulberry tree, is thin yet incredibly strong. You run your fingers over the smooth surface, imagining the painstaking process of soaking, beating, and drying the fibres to create sheets that are both translucent and tough. The paper's texture allows lanterns to glow warmly, without burning through a delicate balance of art and science. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some lantern makers used a secret recipe for their rice paste glue, incorporating ingredients like seaweed or even a pinch of powdered shellfish to improve adhesion and flexibility. This glue had to be just right too wet, and the paper would wrinkle, too dry, and it might crack. The exact formulas were closely guarded family secrets, passed down through generations. You might also be surprised to learn about the tools involved. Beyond simple brushes and knives, some lantern makers employed tiny bamboo needles to pierce and adjust the paper, and a peculiar tool resembling a small wooden comb was used to smooth out wrinkles. The workshop must have been a symphony of subtle sound snips, taps, and the whisper of paper. Historians still debate the extent to which these artisans experimented with materials. Some argue that the use of silk or even thin metal foils in certain lanterns suggests a level of innovation that challenges the idea of a purely traditional craft. Others believe these were rare exceptions, reserved for special occasions or elite patrons. As you watch the lantern take shape, you realize that every fold, every brushstroke is a quiet act of mastery. The materials may seem humble, but combined with skill and patience, they create a soft glow that has lit up Edo's nights for centuries. And remember that secret glue recipe next time you're frustrated with your own sticky situation. You step deeper into the lantern maker's workshop, the faint scent of rice paste and bamboo mingling with the soft rustle of washi paper. The room is modest, lit by a few flickering lanterns casting dancing shadows on the walls, and you quickly realize this is a space where time seems to slow down. The artisans here move with a quiet rhythm, hands steady and practiced, folding and shaping with an almost meditative focus. It's a world apart from the bustling streets outside, a sanctuary of patience and precision. Daily life for these lantern makers is a blend of routine and subtle artistry. You watch as a master craftsman carefully stretches a sheet of paper over a bamboo frame, smoothing it with a brush dipped in that secret rice paste glue. His apprentice sits nearby, eyes sharp, learning the delicate balance between tension and flexibility. The workshop hums with quiet conversation, the occasional soft chuckle, and the steady scrape of tools. It's hard to imagine that this humble scene is part of a vast urban tapestry. Historians still argue about the social status of these artisans. Were they lowly labourers, barely scraping by, or respected members of their communities? Some records suggest lantern makers were part of guilds that offered protection and a degree of prestige, while other sources hint at their marginalization in Edo's rigid social hierarchy. Either way, their craft was essential to city life, and their lanterns brightened homes, shops, and festivals alike. A quirky tidbit: some lantern makers believed that the first lantern made each day had to be perfect, or else the entire day's work would be cursed with bad luck. This superstition added a layer of quiet pressure to their morning routine, making the initial folds and gluing moments of intense concentration. You notice that the workshop is surprisingly communal. Apprentices learn not just by watching, but by sharing stories and jokes, passing down not only techniques, but also the culture of their craft. It's a living tradition, one that blends skill, superstition, and social bonds. As you linger, you can almost hear the soft murmur of Edo's nights, the glow of paper lanterns guiding footsteps and dreams alike. The lantern maker's quiet dedication ensures that this gentle light continues to flicker, a small but vital thread in the city's fabric. You find yourself drifting into the lively world of Edo's festivals, where paper lanterns transform from humble light sources into dazzling stars of celebration. The city's Matsurazisnal festivals, filled with music, dance, and food stalls, set awash with the warm glow of countless lanterns, each one a tiny beacon of joy and tradition. As night falls, the streets become rivers of soft light, guiding revelers through the festive chaos. Lanterns play a central role here, not just for illumination, but as symbols of community and hope. You watch as families carry lanterns decorated with intricate designed cherry blossoms for spring, fiery maple leaves for autumn, each pattern carefully chosen to reflect the season's spirit. The flickering lights create an atmosphere that's both magical and comforting, a shared experience binding the city's inhabitants. You stroll through Edo's bustling lantern market, a lively scene filled with the hum of bargaining voices, the scent of fresh paper and bamboo, and the soft glow of lanterns waiting to find new homes. Stalls line the narrow streets, each one displaying a dazzling array of paper lanterns, some plain and practical, others elaborately decorated with calligraphy, family crests, or seasonal motifs. The lantern's size and movement caused a brief panic among boaters who thought a sea monster was loose. It took a while for the truth to surface, and the tale became a favourite among locals, adding a splash of humour to the festival's history. You might be surprised to learn that some lanterns were designed to be carried in processions, while others were hung high above streets or floated on water.
Each type required different construction techniques, from sturdy frames to waterproof coatings, showcasing the artisan's adaptability. The lanterns also had a spiritual dimension during festivals. Many were inscribed with prayers or wishes, their light believed to carry hopes to the gods. This intertwining of the practical and the mystical adds depth to the glowing spectacle.
As you soak in the festival's ambience, you realize that these paper lanterns are more than decoration. They're living threads of tradition, illuminating not just the streets, but the hearts of Edo's people. And remember that fish-shaped lantern next time you're at a festival. Sometimes even light can cause a little chaos. Sellers employ clever tactics to attract customers, whispering promises of durability, offering small discounts, or showcasing the latest seasonal patterns. Historians still debate the pricing customs in Edo's lantern market. Some suggest that prices were fixed by guild agreements to maintain fairness, while others argue that haggling was common, with prices fluctuating based on demand and the buyer's status. You might be surprised to learn that certain lantern styles were considered lucky or unlucky to buy at specific times of the year. For example, purchasing a red lantern during the new year was thought to bring good fortune, while some patterns were avoided during mourning periods. This added a layer of cultural nuance to what might otherwise seem like simple market transactions. Either way, the market was a vibrant hub where artisans and customers mingled, shaping the lantern culture of the city. A quirky tidbit: Some lantern makers included tiny hidden symbols or signatures within their designs, like a small bird or a particular brushstroke that only discerning buyers or fellow artisans could spot. These subtle marks were a form of branding long before logos became a thing. You lean in to catch the whispers of the lantern guilds, secretive societies that shaped the craft and commerce of paper lantern making in Edo. Apprenticeships here aren't just about learning to fold paper or bend bamboos. They're rites of passage into a tightly knit world where skills, secrets, and social codes pass quietly from master to pupil. You can almost feel the weight of tradition in the air, like an invisible thread connecting generations. A quirky tidbit: some apprentices were required to live with their masters for years, not just to learn the craft, but to absorb the guild's unwritten codes, like when to speak, when to remain silent, and even how to handle the secret glue recipes. Breaking these codes could mean expulsion or worse, a lifetime ban from the trade. You might be surprised that guild meetings sometimes involved elaborate rituals, including the lighting of special lanterns that symbolized the guild's unity and commitment to excellence. These ceremonies were shrouded in mystery, and outsiders rarely witnessed them. The apprenticeship itself was a slow, deliberate process. You start by observing, then gradually take on simple tasks cutting bamboo strips, mixing glue before moving on to more complex work like painting or assembling frames. Guilds were more than trade unions. They controlled quality, pricing, and even who could enter the profession. Joining one meant gaining protection and prestige, but also submitting to strict rules. Historians still argue about how powerful these guilds really were. Some say they wielded significant influence over Edo's lantern market, while others believe their role was more symbolic, a way to preserve craft standards. So next time you see a beautifully crafted lantern, remember the unseen hands and whispered codes that shaped it, a legacy glowing softly through the centuries. You step into the serene world of Edo's temples and shrines, where paper lanterns serve not just as light, but as sacred symbols bridging the earthly and the divine. Lanterns hang in orderly rows, their soft glow illuminating wooden beams carved with centuries-old prayers. The air is thick with incense and the quiet murmur of worshippers, and you can almost feel the lantern's gentle light carrying whispered hopes upward. In religious contexts, lanterns were more than practical objects. They were offerings, guides for spirits, and protective talismans. Many temples commissioned special lanterns inscribed with sutras or prayers, believing the light would ward off evil and invite blessings. You might imagine monks carefully lighting these lanterns during festivals like Obon, when ancestral spirits were said to return to the living world. Historians still debate the extent to which lanterns were believed to have spiritual power versus their role as symbolic decorations. Some argue that the light itself was thought to purify spaces, while others see lanterns primarily as aesthetic elements enhancing ritual ambience. Here's a fringe theory. Some scholars suggest that certain lantern designs were deliberately crafted to confuse or repel malevolent spirits, using patterns and shapes that disrupted supernatural energy flows. While this idea isn't universally accepted, it adds an intriguing layer to the lantern's spiritual role. You might be surprised to learn that some temple lanterns were made with thicker paper or even thin metal to withstand outdoor elements during long ceremonies. These sturdier lanterns require different crafting techniques, blending artistry with durability. The seasonal cycle influenced religious lantern use as well. During the new year, lanterns symbolized renewal and guidance into a prosperous future, while in autumn they marked the passage of spirits and the impermanence of life, delicate balance of light and shadow. As you absorb this quiet spirituality, you realize that Edo's paper lanterns were more than mere illumination. They were vessels of faith, hope, and cultural memory. Their glow connected the material world with something beyond, a soft light guiding both the living and the spirits through the night. So, as you picture these sacred lanterns flickering in temple courtyards, remember the deeper meanings woven into their fragile, framesome, luminous bridge between worlds. You notice how the designs on Edo-era paper lanterns shift subtly with the seasons, transforming these glowing orbs into living calendars that mark the passage of time. In spring, lanterns bloom, with cherry blossoms painted delicately on their translucent surfaces, their soft pink hues glowing warmly in the night. Come summer, bold patterns of waving grasses and shimmering dragonflies dominate, evoking the heat and hum of cicadas. Autumn brings fiery maple leaves and chrysanthemums, while winter lanterns often feature austere pine and bamboo motifs, symbols of endurance and resilience. Historians still debate how strictly these seasonal designs were followed. Some argue that artisans and customers alike took these motifs seriously, adhering to unwritten rules that governed when certain patterns could be displayed. Others suggest that while seasonal designs were popular, practical concerns and personal taste often overrode tradition. Here's a quirky tidbit. One summer lantern design featured a peculiar pattern of tiny, almost microscopic frogs hopping across the paper. Scholars have puzzled over this odd choice. Was it a playful joke by the artisan, a secret symbol, or simply a way to test the limits of fine brushwork? The mystery remains unsolved, adding a touch of whimsy to the craft. You might be surprised to learn that some lantern makers created seasonal sets, collections of lanterns designed to be displayed together throughout the year, each set carefully curated to reflect the changing months. These sets were prized possessions in wealthier households and often passed down as heirlooms. The seasonal shifts weren't just aesthetic, they connected the lanterns to the rhythms of nature and the cultural calendar. Festivals, agricultural cycles, and religious observances all influenced which designs were favored at what times, making lanterns subtle markers of time and tradition. As you imagine these softly glowing seasonal lanterns, you feel the quiet pulse of Edo's year unfolding each flicker, a reminder that even in the darkest nights, life moves forward in gentle, beautiful cycles. So, next time you see a lantern with a curious frog or a fiery leaf, remember it's more than decoration, it's a whisper of the seasons, glowing softly through history. You find yourself drifting into the quiet corners of Edo's tea houses and literary salons, where poets and writers gather, their voices low and thoughtful, praising the gentle glow of paper lanterns as muses for their verses. The soft flickering light creates an intimate atmosphere, perfect for spinning tales or composing haiku that capture fleeting moments of beauty. Lanterns here are more than illumination. They're companions to creativity, casting shadows that dance alongside words. Many Edo period poets celebrated lantern light in their work, drawing on its symbolism of transience, guidance, and hope. The lantern's glow often appears as a metaphor for life's delicate balance between light and darkness, presence and absence. You might imagine a poet pausing mid-verse to watch the flame flicker, finding inspiration in its quiet persistence. Historians still debate how widespread lantern imagery was in Edo literature. Some scholars argue that lanterns were a common motif, reflecting their ubiquity in daily life, while others suggest that literary references were limited to specific genres or social circles. Either way, the connection between lanterns and art is undeniable. Here's a quirky tidbit. One famous poet reportedly carried a miniature paper lantern in his pocket, lighting it briefly during solitary walks to spark his imagination. Whether this was a practical tool or a symbolic gesture remains a charming mystery. You might be surprised to learn that some lantern makers collaborated with ukiyo-e artists, commissioning prints that featured lantern scenes, or even designing lanterns inspired by popular woodblock prints. However, these collaborations were often fraught with challenges, as the delicate nature of paper lanterns didn't always translate well to mass-produced art. The interplay between lanterns and literature reflects a broader cultural appreciation for subtle beauty and impermanence concepts central to Edo aesthetics. Lanterns, with their fragile frames and flickering flames, embody these ideas perfectly. As you listen to the soft murmur of poetry and the glow of lantern light, you sense a world where art and craft intertwine, each illuminating the other in gentle harmony. So, next time you read a haiku or see a woodblock print, remember the quiet lantern light that inspired and accompanied Edo's creative souls. You find yourself stepping into the bustling economic web of Edo, where the humble paper lantern trade quietly hums beneath the city's grander industries. Lanterns weren't just pretty lights. They were a thriving business that supported artisans, merchants, and even exporters. As you wander through the marketplace, you realize that these glowing orbs played a surprisingly significant role in Edo's economy. The lantern trade connected rural producers of bamboo and paper with urban craftsmen and retailers, forming a complex supply chain. You might imagine boats loaded with bamboo stalks arriving at Edo's ports, while paper makers in distant provinces prepared delicate washi sheets. Lantern makers then transformed these raw materials into products that lit homes, shops, and festivals across the city. Historians still debate the scale of lantern exports during the Edo period. Some argue that lanterns were primarily a domestic commodity, while others point to records suggesting that Edo's lanterns found their way to neighboring countries, carried by merchants eager to share Japan's craftsmanship abroad. A quirky tidbit: some lantern makers experimented with exporting travel lanterns, smaller, sturdier versions designed for merchants and travelers. These compact lanterns had reinforced frames and waterproof coatings, making them practical companions on long journeys. You might be surprised to learn that the lantern trade contributed to Edo's seasonal employment patterns. Demand for lanterns surged before major festivals and holidays, leading to bursts of production that kept workshops bustling and workers busy. This cyclical nature of work created a rhythm of feast and famine for many artisans. The economic impact of lanterns extended beyond the workshops. Shops selling lanterns often doubled as social hubs, places where neighbours gathered to exchange news and gossip under the warm glow. The lantern's light, therefore, illuminated not only streets, but also the social fabric of the city. You wander through Edo's streets and homes, noticing how paper lanterns are woven seamlessly into everyday life, their soft glow a constant companion from dawn's early light to the deepening night. Lanterns aren't just for festivals or temples, they're practical tools, shop signs, and even subtle status symbols, quietly illuminating the rhythm of daily existence. In front of shops, lanterns hang proudly, often emblazoned with the merchant's family crest or business name, signaling not just that the shop is open, but also offering a gentle invitation to customers. You might imagine a busy street lined with these glowing signs, each lantern casting its own unique light and personality. Inside homes, lanterns provide warm, flickering illumination for evening meals, storytelling, or quiet reflection. Historians still debate how widespread lantern use was among different social classes. Some argue that lanterns were common in most households, while others suggest that only wealthier families could afford the more elaborate designs. Regardless, their presence was unmistakable in the urban landscape. Here's a curious story. During the Edo period, some merchants used lanterns to send secret messages. By varying the number of lanterns displayed or the way they were hung, shopkeepers could communicate discreetly with allies or signal the arrival of important news. It's like a low-tech version of Morse code, glowing softly in the night. You might be surprised to learn that lanterns were sometimes used as makeshift clocks. The slow burn of a candle inside could mark the passage of time, with some lanterns designed to burn for a specific number of hours. This practical use added another layer to their importance in everyday life. As you stroll through these softly lit streets, you feel the lantern's quiet ubiquity, their gentle presence, a comforting constant amid the city's ebb and flow. They're more than light, they're a subtle language, a social signal, and a warm embrace after a long day. So, next time you see a lantern glowing in a shop window or hanging outside a home, remember the myriad ways these simple lights shaped the daily lives of Edo's people, flickering softly through history. You sense the slow, inevitable shift as Edo's paper lantern tradition begins to wane, a quiet fading of an ancient glow as new technologies and changing tastes reshape the city's nights. The steady flicker of candlelight gives way to oil lamps, and eventually the faint promise of electric light looms on the horizon. Lantern makers, once central to Edo's nocturnal life, find themselves navigating uncertain waters. Historians still debate the exact causes of this decline. Some point to the rise of more efficient lighting methods, while others emphasize economic shifts or changes in urban planning that reduced the demand for traditional lanterns. It's likely a combination of factors, each contributing to the gradual eclipse of paper lanterns. A quirky tidbit: some lantern makers tried to innovate by creating lanterns with glass panels or metal reinforcements, blending old techniques with new materials. These hybrids were met with mixed reactions. Some customers embraced the sturdiness, while purists lamented the loss of delicate beauty. You might be surprised to learn that despite the decline, lantern making didn't disappear overnight. Many workshops adapted by producing decorative lanterns for festivals or souvenirs for travelers, shifting from practical lighting to cultural artifacts. This transition helped preserve the craft, even as its everyday use diminished.
The decline also sparked debates among artisans and patrons about tradition versus progress. Some feared that abandoning paper lanterns meant losing a vital cultural touchstone, while others welcomed modern lighting as a sign of Edo-san, later Tokyo's modernity. As you imagine this twilight period, you feel a bittersweet tension, the soft glow of paper lanterns dimming, yet their legacy flickering on in new forms.
The quiet artisans who once shaped light now face the challenge of preserving their heritage in a changing world. So, as you watch the city's nights grow brighter with new inventions, remember the gentle, patient glow of Edo's paper lantern Macursor light that never truly goes out, just changes its shape. You step quietly into the homes of Edo's lantern makers, where craft and family life intertwine in a delicate dance of tradition and daily routine. The workshop often doubles as a living space, with bamboo frames drying near the hearth and sheets of washi paper stacked alongside family heirlooms. You can almost hear the soft laughter of children playing amid lantern parts, the murmur of elders sharing stories, and the steady rhythm of hands folding paper. Family was central to the lantern making tradition. Skills and secret recipes passed from parent to child, creating a lineage of artisans bound by craft and kinship. Apprentices were often relatives, and the workshop was a place where generations coexisted, blending work with the warmth of home. Historians still debate how much these family ties influenced the craft's evolution. Did innovation come from within families or from outside influences? A quirky superstition lingered in many households. It was considered bad luck to start a new lantern frame on a certain day of the lunar calendar, lest the entire family suffer misfortune. This belief shaped not just work schedules, but family rituals, adding a layer of mysticism to everyday life. You might be surprised to learn that some lantern makers held small festivals within their homes, celebrating milestones like the completion of a complex lantern or the successful apprenticeship of a child. These intimate gatherings reinforced community bonds and honored the craft's importance beyond commerce. As you imagine these homes, you sense the blending of light and life, where the soft glow of lanterns mirrors the warmth of family ties. The craft isn't just a job, it's a legacy, a shared heartbeat passed quietly through time. So, next time you think of lantern makers, picture not just artisans, but families, their lives illuminated by flickering flames and woven together by tradition. You find yourself amidst the vibrant intersection of lantern making and Edo's flourishing art scene, where the delicate craft of paper lanterns brushes shoulders with the bold strokes of ukiyo-e prints. These two art forms, both quintessentially Japanese, sometimes merged in surprising ways, creating objects that were as much visual poetry as practical light sources.
Lantern makers occasionally collaborated with ukiyo-e artists, commissioning designs inspired by popular prints or incorporating famous motifs like kabuki actors, landscapes, or mythical creatures onto lantern surfaces. This blending of crafts elevated lanterns from mere illumination to portable canvases, carrying images that told stories or celebrated cultural icons. Historians still debate how widespread these collaborations were. Some argue that such lanterns were rare luxury items for the wealthy elite, while others suggest they were more common, accessible to middle-class patrons eager to display fashionable tastes. A quirky tidbit. One infamous collaboration involved a lantern series featuring caricatures of Edo's most notorious gossip mongers. The prints were so sharp and humorous that some lantern makers faced social backlash, accused of mocking powerful figures under the cover of night. You might be surprised to learn that technical challenges often limited these artistic fusions. The delicate paper and curved surfaces made printing or painting intricate designs difficult, and colors sometimes faded quickly when exposed to candlelight and smoke. Lantern makers had to innovate with special inks and protective coatings to preserve the artwork. Despite these hurdles, the crossover between lantern making and ukiyo-e reflects Edo's broader cultural dynamismicity, where tradition and innovation danced in the flickering light. Lanterns became not just tools but expressions of identity, taste, and humor. As you imagine these artful lanterns glowing softly in Edo's streets, you sense a city alive with creativity, where even the simplest light carries stories, laughter, and the pulse of a vibrant culture. So, next time you see a lantern adorned with elegant prints or playful images, remember the spirited collaboration that brought art and craft together in Edo's glowing nights. You watch closely as the care and maintenance of Edo-era paper lanterns unfold a delicate ritual that keeps these fragile lights burning night after night. Lanterns, made of thin washi paper and bamboo frames, require gentle handling and regular attention. You can almost feel the soft brush smoothing out wrinkles, the careful touch that repairs tiny tears, and the patient hands replacing worn-out paper. Maintaining a lantern wasn't just about aesthetics, it was essential for safety. A cracked frame or torn paper could expose the candle flame, risking fires in the tightly packed wooden neighborhoods. Lantern makers or owners often perform routine inspections, replacing parts or reinforcing frames to prolong the lantern's life. Historians still debate the extent to which lantern maintenance was a specialized skill. Some argue that only experienced artisans could properly repair lanterns, while others suggest that many households learned basic upkeep techniques to care for their own lanterns. Here's a quirky tidbit. A popular maintenance method involved washing the bamboo frames with rice water, believed to strengthen the fibers and prevent insect damage. Scholars find this practice puzzling, as modern science questions its effectiveness, but it persisted as a trusted tradition. You might be surprised to learn that some lanterns were designed for easy disassembly, allowing owners to replace paper panels without dismantling the entire frame. This modular approach was a clever innovation, making upkeep more manageable and extending the lantern's usefulness. The maintenance rituals also had a social dimension. Lantern makers sometimes offered repair services, visiting homes to fix cherished lanterns, strengthening community ties. Lantern care became a shared responsibility, reflecting the object's importance beyond mere utility. As you imagine these quiet acts of preservation, you realize that the lantern's soft glow depends not only on craftsmanship, but on ongoing tender relationship between light and its keeper. So, next time you admire a lantern's gentle flicker, remember the unseen hands and rituals that keep its flame alive, a quiet dance of care through Edo's nights. You lean in to hear the whispered tales swirling around Edo's paper, lanterns urban legends that flicker like shadows in the night, adding a mysterious glow to the craft's quiet history. Stories of haunted lanterns and maker curses circulate among townsfolk, blending superstition with the everyday and giving these fragile objects a life beyond their physical form. One popular legend tells of a lantern that, once lit, would never extinguish until the maker's family line indebted a blessing or a curse, depending on who you ask. Some say the lantern's flame could wander on its own, leading unsuspecting travelers astray in the winding alleys. These tales, while often dismissed by historians, reveal how deeply lanterns were woven into Edo's cultural imagination. Historians remain skeptical about the literal truth of these stories, but acknowledge their value in understanding the social context of lantern making. Such legends may have served to protect trade secrets or enforce guild loyalty, cloaking the craft in an aura of mystery. A quirky tidbit. Some lantern makers reportedly believed that breaking a lantern's frame without proper ritual could bring bad luck or even illness. This belief led to elaborate lantern funerals, where broken lanterns were respectfully burned or buried to appease restless spirits. You might be surprised to learn that some haunted lantern stories were linked to specific neighborhoods, influencing where lantern makers chose to work or live. Fear of curses sometimes affected the social geography of the craft, a fascinating intersection of belief and livelihood. These urban legends, while eerie, also highlight the lantern's role as a symbol of life's fragility and the unseen forces believed to shape daily existence. The flickering light becomes a metaphor for the thin veil between the known and the unknown. As you listen to these whispered stories, you feel the lantern's glow deepen, carrying not just light but the weight of human hopes, fears, and imagination. So, next time you see a softly glowing lantern, remember the shadows it casts, both real and imagined in the rich tapestry of Edo's nights. You find yourself tracing the subtle legacy of Edo's paper lantern makers, their craft quietly influencing lighting traditions far beyond their time and place. Though the golden age of these artisans faded with the dawn of modernity, their delicate creations left an imprint on Japanese culture and, surprisingly, even on Western lantern designs. The soft glow and elegant simplicity of Edo lanterns inspired later generations of Japanese lighting, from the refined paper lamps of the Meiji period to contemporary designs that blend tradition with innovation. You might imagine how the lantern's gentle light shaped not only aesthetics but also the cultural value placed on subtle illumination and atmosphere. Historians still debate the extent of Edo lantern makers' influence outside Japan. Some suggest that European travelers and traders brought back lantern designs that subtly informed Western lighting styles, especially in the 19th century's fascination with Japanism. Others argue that any similarities are coincidental or part of broader global trends in lighting. A quirky tidbit: a few Western lantern makers in the late 1800s attempted to replicate Edo-style paper lanterns, but struggled with the delicate materials and techniques, leading to some rather comical failures involving soggy paper and collapsing frames. You might be surprised to learn that some Edo lantern motifs, like the chrysanthemum or the crane, became popular decorative elements in Western lanterns, symbolizing an exotic elegance that captivated collectors and designers alike. The legacy of these artisans is a testament to the quiet power of craft and culture, how a simple object can ripple across time and borders, illuminating new paths while honoring old light. As you reflect on this enduring glow, you realize that Edo's paper lantern makers, though often overlooked, cast a long and gentle light one that continues to flicker softly in the world's collective imagination. So, next time you see a lantern, whether in a Tokyo alley or a European garden, remember the quiet artisans whose hands shaped a tradition that still lights our way. You step into the present day where a quiet revival breathes new life into the ancient craft of Edo-Era paper lantern making. Modern artisans, inspired by tradition and fueled by passion, rekindle old techniques, blending them with contemporary aesthetics to create lanterns that glow with both history and innovation. You can almost hear the soft snip of bamboo and the gentle brush of washi paper as these craftspeople honor their predecessors. These modern makers face unique challenges. Sourcing authentic materials like traditional mulberry fibers or old-growth bamboo is difficult in a world dominated by industrial production. Additionally, the delicate, time-consuming process clashes with today's fast-paced consumer culture. Yet, a growing appreciation for handmade, sustainable goods fuels demand, turning lantern making into a niche but vibrant art form. Historians and cultural scholars still debate how faithfully today's artisans replicate Edo techniques versus adapting them for modern tastes. Some purists argue for strict adherence to tradition, while others embrace innovation, seeing the craft as a living, evolving practice. A quirky tidbit: some contemporary lantern makers incorporate LED lights instead of candles, creating a hybrid glow that honors the past while embracing the future. This fusion sometimes sparks lively debates among enthusiasts about authenticity and innovation. You might be surprised to learn that lantern making workshops have become popular cultural experiences for tourists and locals alike, offering hands-on opportunities to fold paper and assemble, frames transforming a centuries-old craft into a shared, tactile journey. As you witness this modern renaissance, you feel a connection across time, a thread linking Edo's quiet artisans to today's creators, all united by the soft, enduring light of paper lanterns. So, as you admire a glowing lantern in a contemporary gallery or festival, remember the resilient craft that flickers gently through centuries, lighting both past and present. You find yourself reflecting on the symbolic power of paper lanterns in contemporary Japan, where these luminous objects continue to embody themes of hope, remembrance, and community. Though their practical role has diminished, lanterns remain central to festivals, ceremonies, and public art installations, their soft glow connecting modern life with centuries of tradition. During events like the Toro Nagashi, lanterns are floated down rivers to honor ancestors, their flickering lights carrying prayers and memories downstream. You might imagine the serene beauty of hundreds of lanterns drifting gently on water, each one a fragile vessel of personal and collective history. Historians still discuss how modern interpretations of lantern traditions balance innovation with respect for heritage. Some see contemporary lantern festivals as vibrant expressions of cultural identity, while others caution against commercialization diluting their spiritual significance. A quirky tidbit: in recent years, interactive digital lantern installations have emerged, allowing participants to design virtual lanterns projected onto buildings or waterways, melding ancient symbolism with cutting-edge technology. You might be surprised to learn that paper lanterns have also inspired international art projects and cultural exchanges, symbolizing peace and unity across borders. Their universal appeal lies in the simple yet profound act of lighting a small flame in darkness. As you contemplate these glowing traditions, you realize that Edo's paper lantern makers set in motion a legacy far beyond their workshops, a legacy of light as metaphor, memory, and connection. So, Next time you see a paper lantern flickering in a festival or gallery, remember the centuries of hands and hearts that shaped its gentle glow, a beacon linking past, present, and future.